Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film Pillion, directed by Lighton. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Lighton has made something that feels intimate, unsettling and quietly tender. It carries the frame of a coming-of-age story, yet the twist is that Colin is already an adult. He lives with his parents, he's still half adolescent in spirit, and his parents are gently nudging him into dating. Colin is instantly likeable in a very British way, endearing and awkward, with a kind of innocence and emotional openness that makes him instantly likeable. At times the film works as a really funny comedy. It's genuinely funny, sharply written, and the audience I watched it with laughed often. Yet it never collapses into the predictable sort of British quirky humour that I often fear for films like this. It has the confidence to place its comedy inside something more emotionally charged, and Bromley as a setting gives it a specific suburban authenticity. The contrast between a deeply taboo relationship dynamic and the scenery of Kent makes the outrageousness of the film feel grounded in a recognisable everyday Britain. And I think that this strengthens rather than dilutes its power. Under the enjoyable humour lies some serious exploration of relational dynamics. The film explores power, vulnerability, consent, and desire with a candid but refreshing honesty. It's very explicit, but I never felt that it was leaning into voyeurism. It never felt like it was trying to sensationalise. Instead, I think it places the audience inside a relationship that's tender, painful, erotic, and deeply ambiguous. The line between consensual play and exploitation is never clearly drawn, and for me, that's precisely why the film is so effective. It mirrors real life, where consent can be clear in one moment and uncertain in the next, and where emotional needs can blur boundaries, even when everyone intends to behave in a proper and appropriate manner. Alexander Skarsgård is outstanding. Without much dialogue, he conveys a man who's emotionally shut down, possibly wounded, and yet capable of creating a strange intimacy with Colin. The chemistry between them feels authentic and totally believable. Harry Melling gives a truly impressive performance as well as Colin. He captures his awkwardness, the longing, the desire, and his shame with a subtle emotional precision. Although you might say that there is dysfunction in this relationship, there is a humanity in it. This is the story of two people trying to find connection in the only way that they know how. Colin's parents are fantastic secondary characters. They bring real warmth, and their easy acceptance of their son's sexuality is really refreshing. They give the story a comic counterpoint without ever undermining its seriousness. It makes the film feel very generous. This is definitely queer cinema, but I think it transcends the category because it is simply great cinema. The story is really compelling and it never judges its characters, even when they're making painful choices. The BDSM scenes are very explicit and I found them quite visceral. I don't enjoy gratuitous explicit sex at all, but I was totally comfortable with this. The sex scenes definitely serve the narrative fully. The sex isn't included for titillation or for shock. I think it's integral to the emotional truth of the story. The ambiguity within the sex mirrors the ambiguity within the relationship. It may be nurturing or it may be harmful. I think it's impossible to say for certain. That tension is vital to the meaning of this film. Now, I want to discuss the ending, so a warning for those who don't want spoilers. Ray's emotional detachment feels central to the film. We never learn who he really is or what has shaped him, but it is clear that deeper intimacy frightens him. Once he allows himself even a moment of closeness, he ends up withdrawing. In this sense, Colin's mother is right. We know almost nothing about Ray because he doesn't allow anyone to know him. I did laugh out loud when Colin's mum calls him the C word. Colin, meanwhile, begins to realise that the master and servant dynamic isn't enough to meet his emotional needs. He longs for something gentler, something more mutual. This is why the final scene is so striking. Seeing him seek a new dominant partner unsettled me a little bit because it suggests a repetition of the same pattern. Yet the film doesn't treat this as a moral failure. It simply allows us to reflect on what people want and what they settle for and what they return to, even if it's going to hurt. I can accept that he's going into the next relationship understanding what he does and doesn't want. He now has his own terms for a relationship, which he never had with Ray. I do think that your attitude to BDSM relationships will determine how you feel about Colin and Ray's relationship. For me, I'm open-minded about any style of relationship, but this relationship would definitely not be for me. I think that any meaningful relationship requires equality and shared intimacy. On that measure, the Colin and Ray dynamic felt incomplete, even dysfunctional. But I also think that the point of the film is probably not to validate or condemn BDSM relationships. It's to represent them with honesty, humour, tenderness, and emotional complexity. Lighton trusts the audience enough to think for ourselves, and that is one of the great strengths of the film. As a first full-length feature, this is confident work. I'll be really interested to see what he does next. Overall, Pillion is uncomfortable at times, funny at others, and emotionally rich throughout. I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.